flames ignited. Solomon's temple, a beacon of gold, but hearts of the people were bought and sold. Adonijah's cry, a rebel flame in the courts of power. They play their games, a queen's deceit, a prophet's call, the rise and the ruin. They've seen it all. Kingdoms in the balance, truth torn apart. A house once united now breaks its heart. Through the fire, through the rain, the echoes of glory, the weight of pain. Elijah stands as the storm clouds grow, a voice in the desert, a truth to show. Ravens feed him, the widow gets bread, yet the idols rise while the faithful are dead. The cloud bears down, the altar's flame, the prophets about cry out in vain. A still small voice, the whisper of might, guides the broken in the black of night. Kingdoms in the balance, truth torn apart. A house once united now breaks its heart. Through the fire, through the rain, the echoes of glory, the weight of pain. The weight of pain. Chariots of flame carry the seer. The heavens open, the end draws near. From Ahab's greed to Jezebel's wile, the blood of the righteous runs mile by mile. The line of the kings, the sins they hide, a covenant fracture, a holy divide. But the promise lingers, a spark remains. In the ashes of ruin, hope sustains. Kingdoms in the balance, truth torn apart. A house once united now breaks its heart. Through the fire, through the rain, the echoes of glory, the weight of pain. From the heights of wisdom to the depths of despair, a story of power, of hope and prayer. The lessons linger, the warnings ring, in the pages of one king's a song we sing.
Good evening. That didn't quite, I don't know, it showed that I still had a bunch of time left on the bar at the bottom. I'm like, wait a minute. Anyway, I'm here. Last night, obviously, I was not here. I was feeling like absolute dog crap last night. Man, I've been dealing with pretty unreal amount of pain. They got that stupid pain scale thing, and I can take quite a bit of pain, and I have to say that it's definitely bouncing between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. Not good at all. For a good part of the day, I can't even hardly move. It's hard for me to even just move. So, when I move my shoulders, stuff like that, it's constantly popping and cracking, and it's not good. And, man, I hope I can make it through this winter, to be real honest with you. If I do, I don't know about next winter. I don't know. I'm assuming that's what's causing this. The cold air and all that stuff, the cold weather and whatnot. Winters have always been a little rough on my body. Not nearly like this, but it's on a totally different level at this point, and it's not any fun. So there was good news today. So we do have one bit of good news in the news today, and that is that we found Nemo. So Nemo was found today. Nemo is actually doing weather on live news now, and it looks to me like Nemo is safe. So definitely a positive report. Should have saw the you should have saw the conversations in chat. It was hilarious. Oh man. So just as I was getting everything kicked off to start the show, I had breaking news coming in on RT as well as other outlets. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect this. I probably should have, but it kind of blindsided me because of the entire situation. Earlier today, the police tried, and we're talking South Korea, they tried once again to arrest the impeached President Yoon Suk Yeol. And the first attempt, which I don't know, a week or two ago, I guess, was unsuccessful. The military actually blocked the police, which in my opinion should probably be even more charges against the chap. And tonight, apparently it wasn't a secret. People were suspicious. They suspected it happening. In some instances, I guess people knew it was going to happen. And so a bunch of Yoon Suk Yeol's supporters decided to go out there and block the police from being able to apprehend him. And so I thought, it's going to be another wasted effort. But apparently not. So this just broke a little bit ago. South Korea's president detained, says Yonhap. Says South Korean authorities have detained President Yoon Suk Yeol for questioning over his brief declaration of martial law last month, according to Yonhap news agency. On December 3, Yoon declared martial law, citing threats from anti-state forces. This highly controversial move was swiftly overruled and led to his impeachment by the National Assembly on December 14, with a vote of 204 to 85. The Constitutional Court is currently deliberating on whether to permanently remove him from office, a decision that must be made within 180 days. Following his impeachment, Yoon confined himself to the presidential residence in Seoul, prompting multiple attempts by authorities to detain him for questioning. An initial attempt on January 3 was thwarted by the Presidential Security Service, resulting in a tense standoff. A second attempt on January 15 saw a significant police presence, with approximately 1,000 officers deployed to enforce the arrest warrant. I guess there was other attempts. Yoon's supporters have actively protested against his detention. Clashes between them and law enforcement have caused injuries, raising concerns about potential violence if force is used to detain the president. Defending his actions, Yoon stated that his declaration of martial law was a legitimate move to protect the nation in a statement released on January 1. He vowed to fight alongside you to the very end to protect this nation, addressing his supporters. Now, here's the thing. There's a right way and a wrong way to go about things. And now this is the only country I've lived in, but I think we would all be in agreement to say that if Trump or anybody else stepped in office and declared martial law so that they could basically remove their political opposition, which the left tried doing, we would be beside ourselves. So I know that Yoon Suk Yeol gets a little bit of support because he is on the red side of things, if you will. And I've heard people report on this, and it's crazy how they, you have to look at the whole story. You can't just start at when the one guy blacked the other guy's eye. You got to stop, you have to pull back, and you have to look at the whole story. Usually not one-sided. And what started all of this was Yoon Suk Yeol declaring martial law on his nation and trying to apprehend or remove, I guess, the political opposition, the left, if you will. And you just didn't hear a whole lot about that. I mean, you heard about it in the news and stuff, but people weren't raving about it and all of that. Well, then, now comes time for him to be at least charged with the crimes they're alleging him of, which I believe he's guilty of. And now you got all kinds of people crawling out of the woodwork. Oh, no, no. Look, you can't do that. That's not how you operate a nation. That's not, and we're not a democracy, but that's not a democracy. I believe South Korea is considered a democracy. We're not a democracy. And I can't vow that South Korea is a democracy. They could be a representative republic as well. I don't know. We are a constitutional representative republic, okay? Which that means that the only way that the Constitution can be overridden is with a very specific set of guidelines, right? Convention of States is one way you can achieve it. I can't remember the other way. Congress can do it, but it's got to have such a majority, and it's pretty tall order to do. Not that it hasn't been done. Of course, there's been amendments added and whatnot. However, it's not an easy task. But you're not supposed to be able to just walk in and sign your name to a piece of paper and do anything that affects those constitutional rights. Now from there, it's supposed to be elected representatives that represent our interests. And I think in many places that fails. I live in Illinois. That's somewhere where it fails. Because all of the power in the entire state is in two locations. Mostly one, and that would be Chicago. Springfield also has a bit of pull, which is odd because Springfield's the capital. You would think that it would be the one with the most pull, but it's by far from that. However, the rest of us in Illinois are just hanging here like, wait a minute, you freaks don't represent us. But because of the way that they've got their screwed up system, we wind up getting led by a bunch of blue hairs. California is even worse because they got some other stupid type of election stuff going on there. I believe their primary, if I understood this correctly, their primary goes as this. The top two people that get voted for are the ones that move on to the election. The top two. It doesn't matter if it's one Democrat, one Republican, two Democrats, it doesn't matter. And because of that, they typically wind up with two Democrats running against one another. And so the chances of California unbecoming a hellhole is a little slim under those rules. So, I don't know. But that's how I know how the United States is supposed to operate. I can't tell you for sure exactly how South Korea is supposed to operate. But it's not operating too well. And I think there are a lot of people there that are just getting fed up. I don't, that's like here. I don't think that there's as much of a political mindset behind the things happening in this country as what is advertised, if you will. I think people are fed up. And I think people on both sides of the aisle are fed up. I firmly believe that this time around, that there were a bunch of people that would have normally voted Democrat that voted Republican this time because they are fed up. Now, does that do us any good? I'm not so sure, to be honest. I am really not so sure. You know, of course, we see good headlines, but I see some pretty scary ones too, and I look at them all. I don't just pick and choose. That's not what a responsible news person does. Hang on, I gotta take this shirt off. My hair all freaks out because I'm letting it grow back out, and it's at that length to where it just wants to act all stupid. And it drives me up a wall. But that's okay. My hair grows like a weed, so it won't take long. Tea. Had another coffee, but I was having too much acid reflux, and telling you, stuff isn't right with my body. So anyway, moving on. I do have 4 things to talk with you tonight. And, well, I guess the South Korea thing made 5, but we're done with that. Let's see. Oh, bring you guys along for the ride. Trump says he will create an external revenue service agency to collect tariff income. So like I said, sometimes I see things that sound good. Other times I see things that I'm a bit concerned with. This one sounds pretty good. It here says President-elect Donald Trump on Tuesday announced plans to create a new agency called the External Revenue Service to collect tariffs and other revenues from foreign nations. We will begin charging those that make money off us with trade, and they will start paying, Trump said Tuesday on his social media site Truth Social. He compared his planned creation to the Internal Revenue Service, which is the nation's domestic tax collector. The creation of a new agency requires an act of Congress, and Republicans hold the majority of both the House and the Senate. Trump, who has vowed to shrink the size of government, would be creating a new agency to do functions already handled by existing agencies, including the Commerce Department and the Customs and Border Patrol, which collect duties and revenues from other nations. The president-elect has tapped 2 business titans to lead his Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, or DOGE, whatever you want to call it, a non-governmental task force assigned to find ways to fire federal workers, cut programs, and slash federal regulations, all part of what he calls his Save America agenda for a second term in the White House. Billionaire Elon Musk and fellow entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy are leading the DOGE ambitious efforts to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. Tariffs, with the threat of a potential 25% levy on all goods from allies like Canada and Mexico, and 60% on goods from China, have been a benchmark of Trump's economic agenda as he heads into his second term. Now, I want to stop and say something here. There's a lot of fear-mongering going on right now in the sales department. I am seeing everybody and their brother come out and telling people, warning people, oh, you know the cost of everything's going to go through the roof. You better buy now, now, now. I just want to remind folks one thing. The same damn thing happened in 2016. Now, I'm not talking about DOGE. I'm not talking about the Internal Revenue Service. But Trump most certainly put tariffs, pretty heavy tariffs, on other nations. Prices did not go up as a result of it. They didn't. Prices didn't go up until COVID came around. But as far as before COVID, prices didn't go up. And Trump absolutely put tariffs on different nations, especially China. And it was a bunch of nothing. Nothing happened. So, listen, folks, don't listen to these wannabe prophets, fearmongers, and everything else. Don't fall for it. If you didn't have plans on buying it, don't rush out right now. If you had plans on buying it, that's probably a good idea to get it. Am I saying prices won't go up? It's hard to say, but it's not going to be this tariff stuff, and it's not going to be an overnight thing. And there's a lot of people that'll tell you a lot of stuff to get you to click add to cart because that's what brings home the bacon for them. It is what it is. So anyway, there's a lot of talk about this. Article does go on a little bit more, but doesn't really pay to discuss it, to be honest. We just got to wait and see what happens. That's all we can do. I have listened to a bunch of interviews. Today I listened to not the entirety, but I did listen to the confirmation hearing of Pete Hegseth, and holy cow, that was crazy. Now, I heard somebody make the comment that he's probably the most controversial one. He's probably going to be the hardest one to get confirmed. I don't know how accurate that is. But boy, at least the Democrats, they were grilling him hard. And you know, there's one point I want to make about it. He was asked about, did he ever go out and, was he involved in this party? Was he involved in that party? Let me tell you something. That dude was a combat vet. A combat vet. Not only that, but he was in leadership. He had a team of men and women that he led on the battlefield. And I'm sure there are quite a few people that he knew and very possibly were close to that he got to watch spend their last breath. He has had to see horrific things. So if the man comes home and he wants to let his hair down, even though he don't have a whole lot, he wants to let his hair down, get drunk, get crazy, have a little bit of fun, as long as he's not harming anyone, leave him be. He earned that. He earned that. And that little bit of time to get wild and free might very well be what prevents him from being another military, suicide. Leave it be. I mean, I just don't get it. They kept hammering him on that. I liked what one of the senators said. He was like, how many, and he was speaking to the other senators in the room, and he's like, how many of you have seen fellow senators come in to make a vote at night drunk? And, it's just like, damn well, probably half of them. So, I mean, it's a mess. Our government's a mess. It is a mess. It is ran by a bunch of alcoholic drug addicts that don't give two shits about this country. They give a damn about what they can get out of holding that office. And that's it. And that's not saying 100% of our members of Congress are that way, but a damn good part of them are. And that's just a fact. That's just a fact. Hang on, let me get a drink of tea. This next one's a good one. It was something that I was tossing around in the old cranium the other day. And, it was enough of a deep thought. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to ask AI. Because I certainly don't know everything. And when it comes to international politics, I even more don't know everything. And so using that bit of realism, I decided, well, I'm going to ask something that has access to everything and see what kind of opinion it gives me. Hang on. By the way, I found a cheater method for Adobe Premiere. So I do this thing. I do two things that are no-nos in broadcasting, and one of them is I pause a lot, and there'll be a little bit of dead air. It's just how I am. I gauge my words. I don't just spit crap out of my mouth. Anybody can do that. I want to put a little thought out before, or put a little thought in before the words come out, because there's a hell of a lot of idiots out there that just spit. It doesn't take, man, I'm telling you, what is that? Integrated preparedness? That guy's a trip, man. He put out a video like a couple of days ago talking about stupid people, and the entire time I'm thinking, dude, you are not. I've got a few of his books. I haven't started reading them yet. I don't know that I will, because I'm really not impressed with the man. I have a feeling his books are going to be absolute crap. But, I'll crack one open here soon and see. And if I'm wrong, I'll be honest. If I am wrong, I will be honest. But I don't think I am. I don't think I am. You got to be careful of authors. Not all of them. Joe Niemeyer, the real deal. I believe Franklin Horton, the real deal. Angry American, Chris Weatherman, that's his name. Fake ASF. Fake ASF. And there are a lot of authors that are fake. They read stuff and therefore think they actually know it. That ain't how it works. The only way you know it is if you've done it and you got experience in it. Other than that, it's just blah, 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 blah. Tea's going down good. So anyway, I'll bring you on over here. I asked Grok. I felt more comfortable asking Grok. What is the possibility of Russia defending Denmark if the U.S. tries to acquire Greenland? That's what I asked. And it responded with this. And it gave me a post and 25 web pages. The possibility of Russia defending Denmark if the United States attempts to acquire Greenland is extremely low based on the current geopolitical dynamics and historical context. Here are several key points to consider. Number 1. Historical context. Russia and Denmark have not historically had a defense pact or mutual military support agreements regarding Greenland. Greenland has been under Danish sovereignty since the 18th century, and Denmark has never relied on Russia for its defense. Okay. NATO membership. And this one was like, ding, ding, ding. Okay, this makes sense. Both Denmark and the United States are members of NATO. This alliance stipulates that an attack on one member is considered an attack on all members. Therefore, if the U.S. were to take aggressive action against Greenland, it would theoretically invoke Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, compelling collective defense, which would include U.S. defense obligations towards Denmark, not against it. Russia, on the other hand, is not a NATO member and has often been at odds with the alliance. Well, that's really making sense there. Strategic interests. Greenland holds significant strategic importance due to its location and resources, particularly in the context of increasing Arctic activity. The U.S. already maintains a military presence in Greenland through the Pituffik Space Base, formerly Thule Air Base. Russia, while interested in Arctic affairs, has its strategic interest more focused on its own Arctic territories and maintaining influence in the region, rather than defending a NATO member like Denmark against other NATO member against another NATO member. Military capability. Russia's military capabilities are stretched thin with ongoing conflicts, notably in Ukraine. You know that story. Political rhetoric. Says recent statements by political figures, including those from the U.S. expressing interest in Greenland, have been met with the assertions from Greenlandic and Danish leaders that the island is not for sale. However, there is no indication in public discourse or policy that Russia would intervene militarily in such a scenario. Posts on X and various news articles suggest skepticism about Russia's ability or desire to defend Greenland against U.S. actions, with some users noting Russia's military weaknesses and that Greenland is already within NATO's framework. And then it says Danish defense policy. Denmark has acknowledged its own historical neglect of Greenland's defense, but has moved to bolster military presence there rather than seeking external help, particularly from non-NATO countries like Russia. And it summarizes it by saying, given these points, there is no credible indication or historical precedent to suggest that Russia would defend Denmark against U.S. actions regarding Greenland. Instead, any defense scenario would more likely involve NATO dynamics with potential diplomatic or economic responses from the international community rather than military intervention by Russia. And I would say, you know what? That's pretty well thought out. That laid out a lot, to be quite honest, and made sense. I was concerned with this. And that's why I went to AI and thought, well, not that I trust AI to be the torchbearer of truth, but I thought, you know, again, it's going to know about things that I don't know. So I figured I would give it a shot. And I thought it did a pretty good job of laying it out. And then I saw some headlines today. And this is proof why you should not just put all your eggs in the AI basket. This is Newsweek. There are several publications with different headlines. Russia warns U.S. off Greenland, violating international laws. Russia has warned the United States against President-elect Donald Trump's plan to acquire Greenland, citing concerns over violations of international law and potential instability in the Arctic region. Federation Council Chairwoman Valentina Matvienko said the Arctic should be a territory of peace and harmony, per reports from Russian news service Interfax-RU. She added Russia cannot rule out the possibility of violating international law in advancing to the Arctic. Newsweek has contacted the Kremlin and Trump's office for comment. Why it matters. Recent comments by Trump have reignited cross-continental tensions regarding Greenland. Trump stated that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security purposes and refused to rule out the use of military or economic measures to acquire the autonomous Danish territory. European leaders are closely monitoring the situation. Russia has been vocal in opposing unilateral actions in the Arctic. Matvienko, speaking to reporters in Moscow, said, "We cannot help but be concerned about such as yet unclear approaches. We cannot rule out the possibility of violating international law and advancing to the Arctic. We have already had such examples when the U.S. tried to expand its reach. This cannot be allowed. We cannot allow violations of international law to the detriment of other states," she added. Greenland, a mineral-rich island in the Arctic, has long been a strategic interest to major powers including Russia, China, and the U.S. due to its untapped resources and its location along emerging shipping routes. Trump comments amidst rising geopolitical competition in the region and a growing focus on Arctic sovereignty and resource exploitation. It also hosts the U.S. Patuxent Space Base, which has been active since 1943. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated Russia's commitment to monitoring the situation closely. We're following this rather dramatic development closely. Thankfully for now, it remains at the level of statements, Peskov told a news conference in Moscow on Thursday. Greenland's leadership and Denmark have also responded firmly to Trump's statements. Greenland Prime Minister emphasized the island's right to self-determination, declaring Greenland is ours, we are not for sale, and will never be for sale. Danish Prime Minister echoed this sentiment, calling Trump's remarks absurd and reaffirming Greenland's sovereignty. So, and I could go on, there's a little bit more, but there are politicians in Greenland that are in support of this, in support of becoming more or less like a part of the United States. So, it's Newsweek. They're going to give you one side of it. You've got some people that's in support of it. You got other people that are against it. Who knows how this is going to shape out? I thought one of the important parts of putting Trump in office was to cool down the wars that are going on in the world and not get ourselves in any other wars. Well, it's starting to look like we were bait and switch there. We'll see. Because I don't think, I know there's politicians in Canada that like the idea of being the 51st state. I've heard statements said by some. Or I should say I've read statements said by some. But we're also talking Panama Canal and Panama. You can damn well bet there's going to be a battle over that. And that's damn well going to involve China. So I don't know that necessarily we elected the president that's not going to start any new wars. Now, I know the art of the deal, and I know that. I also know the art of war. I get Trump's tactics. But, at some point, you got to put your cards down on the table. And if your opponent's calling you out, calling your cards, you got to put them down. I think that puts us in a dangerous position because Trump does have an ego. And I don't think that if Trump says something that could involve military force, I don't see him backing down from it. So all we can do is wait and see. But it's concerning. Because it's basically going right back into nation building, our own this time. And man, this planet should have been done with that a long time ago. Borders should be borders, and that should be that. We shouldn't be fighting over land and territories anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's just stupid think. I don't know. But I know there's a whole hell of a lot of people on this planet that don't want conflict. They just want to be able to survive how they best see fit. That's it. They don't care about how much land they have or don't have. They don't care about getting more land. They just want to be able to get by. They want to be able to have their own version of their own American dream. And that's probably going to be 85 to 90% of the people on the planet. You've got a really small portion of people that are just power hungry and complete lack of conscience. Because I'm sorry, sending young men and women to their death for something that isn't absolutely necessary, that's pretty heartless, and there can't be a whole lot of conscience involved in that. So anyway, got a couple other stories. This first one that I've got here, I know it's not, my views on a particular nation aren't the most popular in the world, and that's fine. I don't care. But it's things like this that really pisses me off. And the fact that I already know not a damn thing's going to be done about it, that sucks. IDF killing of 80-year-old grandmother, likely a war crime, says a UN envoy. Now this ain't a maybe. This ain't a he said, she said. No, this was actually recorded. Israel Defense Forces troops that killed an elderly civilian during a West Bank raid may have committed a war crime. More than may have. UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese has told Sky News. The 80-year-old, Halima Abu Leo, was on a grocery run on December 19 when she was shot 6 times by IDF troops during quote-unquote counterterrorism activity. At the Balata refugee camp near Nablus, she died soon afterward. Now check this out. This is the crazy part. When I look at the footage, what emerges prima facie is that there are no precautions taken within these operations whose legality is debatable to avoid or spare civilian life. No principle or proportionality because there was wildfire directed at the identified target. And ultimately, no respect for the principle of distinction, Albanese told the British outlet on Monday. Basically, they just opened fire. So this was a murder in cold blood and could have been a war crime as an extrajudicial killing, she added. Oh, that's not that. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's bad enough, and that is an actual war crime. But listen to this, if you think that's bad. Sky News had obtained CCTV footage of the incident and analyzed it to establish what happened, which it appears that is exactly what happened. However, it gets worse. The recording shows that IDF troops also used a vehicle marked as an ambulance in potential violation of the Geneva Conventions. Now, how many times have we heard the stories from the IDF? We have seen no video. We have seen no evidence whatsoever that I believe they call them the Red Crescent, that Hamas was using Red Crescent ambulances to sneak up and attack IDF soldiers. But there's not a single bit of evidence of that ever happening. Just like there's not a single bit of evidence of them using human shields, meaning Hamas using human shields. I'm sorry, I don't take news reports because I know damn well how nations lie, and I know how nations lie for other nations. I'm not buying it. I'm not stupid. Remember what I said at the beginning of the show. There's more than one side to a story. And if you look at stuff, if you pull yourself back and you look at the big picture, you often will come to a little bit of a different conclusion. And this stuff started back in the 1940s with whatever, the Balfour Agreement or whatever, that established the nation-state of Israel. That's when this started. This isn't an October 7 thing. This isn't something new. This was because a bunch of people totally unrelated to the people living in these territories decided they were going to make the decisions of whose territories they were. And they drew up these imaginary lines, and then that couldn't be respected. No. They had to move in on the land that was given to them, pump out as many frickin' kids as they could, and then send those kids all over the world including into Palestine, in which they're pretty much have totally taken over at this point. And you know what? They're not going to be done there. Because now they've almost got Palestine, they're about ready to take Syria. And guess what? They're going to get Trump excited about the idea of taking out Iran, and guess what the next country is they're going to take over? People need to pick up the damn Bible. Even though there's a lot of stuff that was changed in it, there's still enough truth in it that you can figure out what's going on with this. Why is it that God himself wipes out Israel in the end? It ain't the first time Israel's been punished. Not close. But in the end, God wipes them out, never to be again. You know why? Because they kept doing the same damn things over and over again. They hide knowledge from the people, and they do everything they can to take as much as they can from everybody else for themselves. They try to take claim to everything, even God himself. And that's why God wipes them out. Done with it. Man, you got to look at that whole story. The whole story. It's important. Anyway, it's a shame. It's a shame. And using an ambulance to do it. Disgusting. Disgusting. And again, we constantly hear that that's what Hamas is doing, although, amazingly enough, we can't ever get any video of Hamas using a Red Crescent vehicle, ambulance, to attack positions. Not one video yet. Not one. You would think we would see one. No, but we got the IDF rolling up in an ambulance, indiscriminately shooting 80-year-old women. I don't take sides on this stuff. I just report it. But I think it's awful damn obvious. I don't want either side taking the lives of either side. Because murder is wrong. But I'm not going to sit there and lie so I can support some bunch of bullshit religions. Sorry. No, I'm not. I said it a million times, man. Two largest religions on this planet are the two that were responsible for the alleged crucifixion. Well, there was a crucifixion, but we'll differ on what that crucifixion was about. The Romans and the Jews were the ones responsible for him, for what happened to him. Well, the Romans are the Catholics. So, anyway, I got one more article for you. Ready to get out of here. I'm hurting like a mofo. I took ibuprofen before I started the show. My hopes are by the time I lay down, I can relax enough to fall asleep. So now it's all up in my shoulder and everything. It's insane. Anywho, here's a crazy story. And I really wonder why that it took so long for an arrest to be made. It doesn't make any sense. Woman texts, "I warned you," to ex-boyfriend before he was killed by a car she was in, troopers say. Those are the two wonderful citizens right there. It says two people were set to face a Connecticut judge on Tuesday in connection with a manslaughter case that happened in Harwington last July. This happened back in July. Logan Diaz Lepardo, 21, and 20-year-old Abigail Whipple, both of Torrington, were arrested on Monday. Just arrested, state police said. Their arrest stemmed from an investigation that began in July when 24-year-old Kevin Christopher Gangle was struck and killed on Clearview Avenue in Harwington. State police said Diaz Lepardo was behind the wheel of a car and Whipple was his passenger. According to the police report, Whipple and Gangle, the victim, dated for over a year. The night before the crash on July 27, Gangle and Whipple got into an argument. The next morning, Whipple found Gangle had blocked her phone number. Troopers said that angered Whipple, so she reached out to Diaz Lepardo. She told state police that she was not interested in Diaz Lepardo romantically, but that he was obsessed with her and would do anything for her. She told troopers, but I kind of let him on a little bit sometimes. I didn't want to hurt him, you know what I mean? Like I would always say one day. When state police told Whipple they would be taking her phone for the investigation, she stated, maybe I've threatened Gangle, but I didn't mean nothing. I said everything I say is out of impulsivity. Police collected Snapchat texts between Diaz Lepardo and Whipple the morning of the crash. In the messages, Whipple asked Diaz Lepardo, "Can we beat his ass, please? And I want to hurt him, or I want him hurt." She also sent a message to Gangle minutes before the crash that said, "I warned you," state police said. Then Diaz Lepardo and Whipple hit Gangle, and with Diaz Lepardo's car, according to state police. Gangle was thrown 70 feet and died. Diaz Lepardo was charged with manslaughter in the first degree with intent to injure, manslaughter in the first degree with grave risk of death, and conspiracy to commit manslaughter in the first degree. Whipple was charged with conspiracy to commit manslaughter in the first degree and accessory to manslaughter in the first degree. Diaz Lepardo was held on a $500,000 bond and Whipple was held on a $250,000 bond. So there's a couple lessons here. Don't trust a crazy woman. That should be a given. And, I don't know. There should be a whole hell of a lot of lessons here. My biggest question is, this happened in July. How come there's just an arrest being made? You knew about the messages a long time back. So why just now? Was it because there was maybe some public pressure or something like that? I don't know. I have no idea. I find that very suspect, though. Very suspect. Is it because the quote-unquote mastermind was a female? I don't know. And I can't answer that no. Because they will do anything. Like I say, I'll tell us again. There was a woman in a town near here, Glen Carbon, that set a house on fire. Let me say that again. Set a house on fire with her husband, ex-husband, husband. I don't know. They broke up and got together, married, divorced. Crazy woman. And she set the house on fire with not only the whatever he was at that second to her, but her children. I believe there were 3 children that she left in the house. I believe there were 3. And then there was an infant that she took with her. Now, the reason that this stands out so much in my mind is because she proceeded to drive from Glen Carbon to Highland right here and drove her, I think it was an SUV, with the infant strapped in the seat, drove into the lake to drown herself and the infant. Well, luckily, as she drove off the roadway into Silver Lake, somebody that was off duty but a emergency responder happened to be on the highway and seen her careen off into the lake. So he pulled right up, jumped into the water, and went to work. The moment that he got into the vehicle, underwater, he realized there was a car seat, and that was his first concern. So we got the car seat unbuckled and whatnot, got the baby out. Thank goodness, thank the Father, the baby survived. She did not. Rightfully so. Luckily, the other children back in Glen Carbon that were left to burn to death in the house got out. I believe that the whatever he was at that second to her, I think, if I recall correctly, he was shot. He was dead before the fire was set. Now, that's a pretty horrific story. And I think most people would agree that that's one crazy bitch. But you should have saw how the news media took for bat for her. She was the victim, and that's all there was to it. She was the victim. So when I say I question whether or not this weight happened to do with the gender of the main perpetrator, even though she's not the one that got the main charges in it because his dumbass was driving the car, but she was the one clearly behind it. I have to question, was it because of her gender? I think so. But I can't answer that with any certainty. It's one of those crazy stories, man. I saw it and I thought I would mention it. So anyway, that's all I got. I am hurting. I'm going to get out of here so I can lay down and go to bed. I hope you all have a good evening. God willing, as long as I can feel good enough to do so, I will see you all tomorrow evening. Hope you have a good night. Shalom.